one of the greatest challenges is for sure the climate change. I think we can actually adapt to it by going backwards in history on how we used to grow coffee inside forests, inside shade trees, treating the farm as an ecosystem instead of treating it as a chemical lab. So I think I'm not going to talk about solution today, but I think we can adapt to it. But we will have to do it pretty fast because we see that coffee is disappearing because the people who are growing it are disappearing from it.
Initiating direct trade and making it work at a small or medium-sized scale is hard, especially ahead of harvest. Arkena Coffee Marketplace connects roasters directly with smallholder farmers in Ethiopia and builds in the hard parts: integrated QC, logistics support, and producer-led transparency. Ethiopia's harvest is underway and samples will be ready in February. We know we're early, but that's the point. With coffee supply as volatile as it has been in 2025, getting in now helps you understand timelines and can assist in planning your 2026 buying with confidence, even if you've never bought direct before. The minimum is around 20 bags, and Arkena can pull multiple roasters to meet the MOQ, so you can participate without overcommitting. If you're curious, listen to our recent conversation on the podcast with founder Matthew Thornton, then explore the marketplace via the link in our show notes. You can also book a meeting with Matthew and he'll walk you through requesting samples, the order process, pulled orders, QC, and shipping once coffees are ready. Supporting our advertisers is a great way to support our mission at Map It Forward to build responsible businesses with responsible pricing models. Check the show notes for details and explore Arkena Coffee Marketplace today. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 1 of a brand new series. We have the distinct pleasure of welcoming George Howell and Tim Wendelboe onto the podcast together for the first time. George, it's your fault that this is happening, and thank you very much. When George came on the podcast earlier this year, he said to me, I think it'd be a really, really interesting conversation between you and I and Tim. And so, Tim, thank you for immediately when I reached out to you and said, hey, listen, what do you think about doing this? You're like, I would be stoked to do this. So thank you, Tim. Thank you, George, for being here. Guys, we are in a very interesting moment in what we're calling the coffee crisis, and all roads lead back to origin. All roads lead back to the climate and the impact that it's having on the coffee value chain. And this series is going to be about understanding the impact of climate on the coffee value chain. We did not time this deliberately to happen, but a couple of hours ago, before we jump into the theme of what was happening, a couple of hours ago, the World Barista competition crowned the new world champion. And before we dive into what we're going to talk about, we're going to have a little bit of, I asked these guys, I said, can we chat a little bit about the relevance of the World Barista competition? Because while some people might think, oh, that's got nothing to do with climate, I think it's very indicative of where we are at as an industry. And I think it's important for us to chat about, given that we have a World Barista champion here on this series. And George is one of the co-founders of Cup of Excellence, which is another coffee competition. So I thought what would be interesting is to ask you guys, first of all, congratulations to Jack. He's an Aussie. Everybody knows my thoughts about the competitions, so we won't waste any time on that. But I think I want to start with you, Tim. What are your thoughts about the relevance of the WBC in a year like 2025?
It's a little bit hard to say. Like when I competed, which is over 20 years ago, the whole purpose of the competition was to educate baristas and to kind of make it a serious craft for people, so that when you called yourself a barista, there was something professional. It was not just a job that you did when you were studying. So I think that purpose has kind of been fulfilled. In many, many countries now, you see professional baristas everywhere, like in producing countries, Eastern Europe, everywhere. So I think it has been I mean, it's a big part because of the competition that's happened, of course, but also creating enthusiasm around coffee. So I don't think the competition necessarily is irrelevant today, but I may think that it's maybe a little outdated. So I think maybe the purpose of the competition may have changed a little bit. Now it just seems to be running just to award a kind of ambassador or something, but ambassador for what? And yeah, so I'm not really sure if that has changed because I'm not really following the competition that much and very closely. So, but I do see that it creates pride among baristas around the world. It creates enthusiasm. It does somehow create some sort of innovation because baristas now communicate with farmers. Whether that's good or not, it's a different story. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the coffees that has been created for competition, but that's another story. So I do think it's a good thing to have in our industry. But I guess for me personally, it's not the place I look for innovation and development anymore. And it used to be, but not anymore.
Yeah.
And you say that as an owner of a cafe and a coffee farmer now, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But I mean, it's so far away from what we do every day in our cafe. I think it's kind of relevant. Like it is about taking care of customers and serving them something nice. But I don't really feel like if I'm to educate my baristas, it's not the best way to do it to send them to a competition. We would rather do it in-house and focus on like everyday important tasks like greeting your customer when they comes in and when they come in the door and stuff like that. So, but I think it's nice to have competitions to create awareness that these details are important. And you know, when I started competing, just keeping a clean working area was like mind blowing. You know, like you have
it wasn't
to
the
clean
status
around the
quo
grinder.
at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Clean the steam wand.
Today, you know, I don't really think that you need technical judges in the competition because the techniques are so much more diverse and it's more interesting to see people doing thoughtful techniques. Whereas before, you know, we had to kind of teach baristas that you had to tamp, you had to do certain things in order to prepare a good espresso. And today, I think because we have those basics very much embedded in our industry, we can bend the rules much more. And that's why I don't think we need necessarily technical evaluation in a World Barista Championship. Like maybe you'll have to use it in a national or regional one, but in a world, you know, you just expect that the 50 plus competitors who are competing in the World Championship have some kind of level of technique, you know. So for me, it's I think the industry need to focus more on customer experience and in order to, and also talk more about the coffee. Like I have to admit that I watched a few presentations this year just because I know someone who was competing. And I think it seems to be necessary to create a concept around it. Like coffee isn't interesting anymore to coffee people. So we have to create something more, you know, talk about meditation or whatever. Like, so I think that's a little bit sad. And for instance, if it was a sommelier competition, you would expect the sommelier to talk about the wines and not, you know, it seems to be they're talking much more about themselves rather than the product that they're serving. So I think there needs to be some development there if we want to have the competition stay relevant.
How about you, George? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly echo what Tim is saying. I've never been in a competition myself, but we did have somebody who won the U.S. Brewers Cup brewing a number of years ago, and I just remember the intense amount of work that went into getting the presentation right and all the rest of it. But it has always struck me as being more of a show and putting on a show very professionally. and really getting down your script down to every single word you say. It's more who's the best show person, and I don't know what relevance that has to coffee itself, right? It's not something and the person who won was out of coffee 6 months later and is
Wow.
doing something else, right? So,
Right.
I've made the joke for any number of years, and this is certainly, I think that the barista competition played an important role and really put some key people like Tim, like Klaus Thompson, and others really into a place where they could speak, be heard, and have an influence that has been very good and powerful in specialty. So that potential exists. It's what the individual does with that crown that really counts for a lot. You have to ask yourself also, if you're a European and you win it, you've got Europeans listening to you. If you're somebody from Central or South America, who have you got listening to you past the last 10 minutes?
Right.
I'm not sure. It's a question, and it's not a judgment on my part, but I just don't know, right? How do you assemble what's around you once you've won that crown? Right? How much of a voice do you have? And what are the opportunities? So, and I think that's key. And I do agree that, so you win these competitions. More important to me too is how is coffee grown? How is it processed? Because when we're serving people, we are in at every point potentially the education business of what's coffee.
Right.
And for us, this is not the case, as I understand it from Tim, in Norway, but in the States, it's getting people to drink black coffee, plain and simple, right? Very few people really drink it. There was a joke in Instagram the other day. This guy who is saying, "I want black coffee," loud to the barista, and then sending a note to the barista saying, "I really want a pumpkin spice latte."
I think my favorite part about that is the image of you sitting there scrolling endlessly on Instagram to find that.
I only wish people felt the pressure to drink black coffee, like that guy suggested, right? So we're doing everything we can now to really get that point across. So the newest cafe will really have that as a title.
Drink black coffee.
Drink black coffee. Every barista in the world should be wearing T-shirts that says "Drink black coffee."
Right, and it's
wouldn't that be great?
In the States, it's really about the milk and
the sugar
and the coconuts and then all the other stuff you do with it, right?
So, George, you're not drinking Cloud Marches at the moment?
No, not yet. But I mean,
you never know. Go down to your local Luckin and have a go.
There we go. Well, I'm waiting. I'm anxiously awaiting Luckin coming in. Right. We have our American versions of Luckin too.
I know. I guess I just want to tack on to what you guys are saying about the competitions. I think for me, the biggest gripe that I have with them is that they're detracting from specifically what we want to talk about in this series, which is the issues that are happening at Origin with regards to how difficult it's getting to grow coffee. And I wish that our industry was taking all of that kinetic energy that was being attributed to these barista competitions and all the money that's spent on these barista competitions and applying them to the problems that we have in actually solving these problems that we have that are a fundamental threat to the future of our industry. And I guess that's what my big issue is with barista competitions. I think we have a lot of smart people in our industry that use these competitions to cultivate a lot of grit. And I think that that's wonderful. I think that it's awesome that it gives people something that's a focus, that's a hard thing to accomplish, and that really cultivates a lot of life skills. But then people stay on that train and they go again and again and again and again. But there are bigger problems that we have, like really, really serious problems that we have to solve in our industry. And I think, wouldn't it be amazing if we took all of the energy that was being attributed to this thing that we are striving for as an industry, and one person wins. Whereas if we took that, a lot of people could win if we tried to solve some of these problems that we're having at Origin. And speaking of those problems, we want to understand the impact of climate on coffee value chains. And I guess bringing it into the series that we're going to talk about, and specifically in this episode of this series, what is the climate crisis in relation to coffee? I think it's, before we have that conversation, I want to say the reason why I wanted you guys to be the two that we had this specific conversation about. We are fortunate enough to have you guys that have been in this industry for an extended period of time, and you have witnessed the evolution of when we went from, as you were saying, Tim, at the time you were competing, cleaning the bench top and cleaning the steaming wands was something that wasn't a standard practice. And George, you were one of the founders of Cup of Excellence. The industry has changed so much in such a short period of time. And now we are at a really intersectional moment of the history of our industry where this thing that is climate could really be threatening the future of what we understand our industry to be. And so I would like to know from you guys, and I'll start with you, George, what is the climate crisis in relation to coffee from your perspective?
Weather is completely unpredictable at this point, far more so than ever before. So as we see in Brazil, I know I'm watching the weather in Brazil every single week at this point. 2 weeks after the flowering, it wasn't raining, prices are going up. Suddenly now it's supposed to be raining again. Prices may go down. We don't know what's coming from one week to the next. And this is not just in Brazil, which is 40% of the world's production approximately, but it was in Vietnam. It can happen anywhere. I see it in one of the places where my favorite coffees in Kenya as well, right? With sudden cold rains, monsoons that haven't been seen forever happening, and then really dry periods when it shouldn't be, and on and on. With the farm I work with, Mamuto, we're seeing suddenly a fly crop that's way bigger than any previous one. With them, the vast majority was the main crop and a very little amount of fly crop, which is great. Now, much more fly crop happening, so we see it splitting into two. The fly crop is not quite as good, and quality is still the thing that drives me, right? So I worry, one, that the very thing that excited me, and still does, which is the extraordinary flavor that coffee can give me without adulteration, with the least amount of trying to alter anything, but just, present the coffee like you would a baby being born, right? in its pure state, and letting you taste what's there. That's disappearing. The very thing that created the enthusiasm for people who go for my concept of specialty coffee, black coffee, the flavors that are there, those flavors are potentially disappearing. There's a lot of effort being put into by the world, WCR, to produce new varieties they're not very exciting for the most part, flavor-wise. That's an issue for me, a super concern. It's why here I am in Kenya with trying to salvage SL28, which is completely prone to all the diseases that we see coming on with climate change. And Kenya seemed to have thought it solved the issue with Ruiru 11 back in the late 80s and 90s, and I didn't think so. It has none of the blackberry that SL20 and 34 had and whatever. And now you have Batian, and so Kenya is losing the very thing which blew my mind and was so exciting and which propelled me to what I've been doing all these years. So I'm afraid that, in our effort in climate change to produce newer varieties, we're losing the gift that we had that was so exciting for people who actually wanted to taste something other than a lot of milk in their coffee or just get the caffeine, run off to their work. So
Right.
I
And how about you, Tim?
answer you, but
Oh, sorry, George. You did.
Yeah.
You did. How about you, Tim? You
Yeah.
are actually farming coffee. You have your
Trying
own
to
coffee
farm.
farm. You're trying to farm. I was thinking the other day, the first time you came on the podcast, you said to me, this is not proving to be a business endeavor that makes any sense, really. And I'm not sure what happens after next year. That was some years ago, Tim.
Yeah.
And you're still
So for-
farming,
Yeah, still trying to farm, yes.
trying
But,
to farm.
This year we're changing a lot of our strategy there, so I'm
Yeah.
more hopeful now than ever before. But
That's a good
I
thing.
mean,
Amen.
I can only echo what George is saying, and I think one of the greatest challenges is for sure the climate change. I think we can actually adapt to it by going backwards in history on how we used to grow coffee inside
Yes.
forests, inside shade trees, treating the farm as an ecosystem instead of treating it as a chemical lab. So I think I'm not going to talk about solution today, but I think we can adapt to it. But we will have to do it pretty fast because we see that coffee is disappearing because the people who are growing it are disappearing from it. And Kenya is a very good example. I think the average age of a farmer, and I know this has been said so many times, but the average age of a coffee farmer there is way above 60 years old. There's no incentive for young people to get into coffee unless you have a special quality that can give you a higher value for the coffee.
Yep.
And even if you do, like a lot of times the farms are too small to make it a living, because you have inflation and everything. Food is getting more expensive because of climate change. Water is getting more scarce, or at least drinking water. Whereas rainwater, especially in Kenya, for the last years have been in abundance. And then you have the opposite as well, like in Colombia, where I have a farm, we had 2 years with very, very strong El Nino phenomenon. So that means almost no rain for almost 2 years. And then now for the last 8 months, it's only been raining almost every day during harvest. That means it's difficult to dry the coffee. You get problems with mold on the coffee. You get the trees, can't handle all the water because there's not enough trees on the farm. There's not enough shade trees to utilize the water. So there's so many problems we see because of climate change, but also because we have been farming in the wrong way for so many years, that the changes are much more dramatic on a coffee farm that is conventionally managed. Conventional being like mineral fertilizers, pesticides, fungicides, no shade, all these kind of things. if you compare it to like agroforestry system or something like that, those farms seem to be, in my experience, to be more resilient against,
Right.
winds, frost, drought, too much rain, all these kind of things. So it's a complex thing, and the reality is that you can clearly see that areas that used to be ideal for growing coffee is not ideal anymore. So either you have to move the coffee production, which either means cutting down more forest, which is,
Not ideal.
it's not ideal. And also, if you want to sell coffee to Europe, it's not possible anymore.
It's not possible.
And there's only that amount of area that you can use to grow coffee. If you want higher altitude, you have to move up the mountain if you want to have good quality. And so the opposite can be that you start growing coffee in new countries, new areas, where maybe labor cost is much higher. For instance, in California, you can grow coffee now, no problem. But the labor cost in California versus, Colombia is very different because the living cost is different.
You look at Kona. That's a great example of that,
Yeah.
right? In the Hawaii region. The shittiest of shitty coffee from Kona today is $29 a pound.
Yeah.
And that's the labor cost is what pushes that up. So,
Right.
that's where we could end up going. George, it looks like you want to say something.
No, I'm agreeing with pretty much everything that's being said. So it's the same thing. I'm looking at in Kenya in particular because, again, there I'm experiencing, not like the farmers are, but I am living a little bit of what's happening there with Mamuto. And regenerative agriculture, bringing back the soil, all of this, a lot more shade trees than ever before. All of this is going to be critical to keep the soil that's there, to improve it. This is going to come at a reduction potentially of the volume produced. It's going to mean that in order for us to do this and be successful, the price paid for this coffee will have to be going up steadily, right? I think I'm probably paying the highest prices for any coffee in Kenya as it is, right? And I'm flying in too,
Right.
in order to preserve everything about it. And we will continue to do that, right? But
Right.
and I'm thinking you will have these new varieties on the one hand, whether they're resilient enough to be produced on the kind of volume per square meter of land is highly questionable to me.
Well, that's a really great point because that's what we want to talk about in the next episode, what the impact is on the harvest. So thank you for setting us up for that, George. Well done. That meant I didn't have to do it. So thank you. Join us for the next episode, folks, where we're talking specifically about that, how the climate crisis is impacting the harvests. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. This episode is part of a 5-part series produced by Mapper Forward. Check the full playlist and guest details in the show notes, as well as how you can support our work in the coffee industry. Become a premium YouTube subscriber, explore our Patreon and any brands we've partnered with to bring you this podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really does help us grow our audience.